Folks, welcome back to the iHealth channel, the Fit and Fab channel, iHealth Radio, of course, with your host, Hurricane H. New day, new show. We're going to talk a nice discussion. We're going to have a nice discussion today with my guest. And, I haven't had one of those before. So I do have someone special today with me. I've had a lot of things when it comes to fitness and, different trainers, coaches, and so on and so forth. But we're going to talk about a specific area in this particular world of fitness, and that's the thing. I mean, it's health, wellness, fitness. They all tie in, and we're going to talk about a lot of this stuff with our guest today. Now, you hear me sometimes say "voila." Well, today we're gonna do the voila method. So and you'll be seeing it right now with my guest Joel Crandall. He's an exercise physiologist, and he has basically this concept that he created. He represents this. It's his baby, and he's going to share that method with us. Now, I have no idea what it is. We're going to talk about it right now. I mean, you can get the hint. Exercise physiologist, all that stuff is going to work in the idea of working with folks, and training them. But I'll leave it to them. Joel, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks so much, Hurricane. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, dude. It's been a minute since we booked this, and I know I want to just thank our dear friend. We have a mutual friend, Coach Mike. Has connected us. So thanking him from this platform. And so Joel, I know you had a great discussion and exchange with him, and he's an awesome host and an awesome guest. I mean, he does a great job, on his own shows as well. And again, by the way, I'm all about supporting, all podcasters and creators out there. Anybody that has a message to present it to people and bring in some value and insights that can help and benefit, that's what we're about. But you have a whole new concept. So before we go anywhere, can you break down to us what does an exercise physiologist do? Because people may think physical therapy, some other things, training, whatever. But let's break it down from the scientific and the background, of course, of Joel, and then we can take it there.
Sure. Kinesiology, which is the study of human movement, and then just now we're looking at exercise physiology. We're looking at like the hormone levels and what happens within the body itself. So that's kind of what I work with, and what I really do is also I help athletes break every personal record they've ever had. Any athlete that's come to see me has broken a personal record after they've seen me, and I don't train them. I don't touch a weight. I don't do anything with them like that. And that's what the VOILA Method is about. And we'll get further into that as we go along, because it's a little hard to explain. It's so simple, it's complicated.
Oh, we have an hour to do so. So we gotta dissect it into. We gotta get a deep dive. We gotta cut the anatomy and see what that VOILA Method looks like. So again, this is beyond. This is like you helping people kind of basically become better, whatever they do in terms of their training and fitness, and ultimately they can achieve things. Now, just hearing you saying that, and I mean, anybody watching or listening right now, if you're into it, you want to break that record, right? You want to be on the next level, and certainly this is definitely something that, like, eureka moment. Voila, we have someone that can help us there. I'm gonna throw in that voila every now and then. So let's. I'm just warning you people. So Joel, so let's by your background in terms of your I guess expertise, what is your history in terms of like doing this? I mean, I'm not sure if this is a new thing that you do, or you've been doing it since this is your basically business.
It's a simple question, but it's a complicated question again, Hurricane, and the fact that I found some old papers and stuff that I'd written on an old computer years ago, and I didn't realize I was writing about voila until I started doing what I do. I'm like, oh my God, I've been doing this for years. I just didn't know it. So it's been fantastic. So really, voila has many different layers to it, but the biggest thing that I want to try and get across here is, so everybody talks about the head and the heart. I'm like, those are great. You have to have those in alignment. So what we do with voila is you got your head, your heart, and your soul, and you will realign those. Find out why you love to lift weights again. It's amazing, Hurricane, how many trainers hate working out. They've gotten over it. All right. And they train people all day long, and they're like, oh man, do I have time to train myself? Or they're not able to train themselves the way they want to do. So what I do is I get people back into alignment and also figuring out why they love to do what they do. Most people come from a place of anger, or I got to prove this person wrong. Nothing wrong with that. It's fine. But it only works to a certain point. If you don't have that passion and that drive, you're not going to get any further, because you need that hatred coming at you in order to succeed. And you shouldn't have to have that. You should have that love and that passion behind why you're doing what you do.
Also, Joel, this is not necessarily just for trainers. I mean, I think that works for everyone. I mean, everybody is at a point or another, do whatever they're doing, they have that feeling, and same. And I mean, ideally, we should all be in that moment where we align, everything, mind, body, and soul together. I mean, if we do that, and by the way, it's a topic that comes over and over in most of the shows. Whenever we talk about health and wellness and fitness, somehow these things align. Even when we talk just coaching and in business and the live business and type of concepts, same thing comes up again, mind, body, and soul. Now, now, I love what you said. Like, trainers. Now, again, listen, I've trained people, and I've been in martial arts, so I've trained people doing that. I've also trained people in general. And by the way, not just in the fitness training. I mean, I've also trained in a corporate world. I mean, training is training. Like, you do it, and right. sometimes, you don't have time for yourself. You got to work a way around that. So, because here's the thing: to be a good trainer, you need to also train yourself and keep yourself mastering whatever the art that you do.
Absolutely.
So I love that, because this can go deeper, and wider than just the context of exercise and fitness, right? Because I mean, go ahead.
And that's why I named it the VOILA Method. And since you have a French background, you understand the meaning, right? And there's multiple meanings to what voila means. So I didn't want voila or what I do to get lumped into a single box, because everybody likes to jump everything into a box and compartmentalize everything. But, voila is there it is. Mm-hmm. The other part of it is there you are, right? And I take those and I combine them together.
Time and place, right? We got to make things happen, right? I mean, I love it. Well, you're right. I mean, it's a word that is in. There's two components to it. Voir, it comes from C and V, and then la, here, or you. So it can be interesting. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine just posted an Instagram post about voila. That was funny. Right? I swear to God, she was like, and she's a French coach and trainer and stuff, and so there was a French kind of teaching moment. Nice. That was a quote that was there. So, but
the irony is, the irony is, I took 3 years of French in junior high and high school and was horrendous.
You and a few million people out there, at least in the States, the second, and we have this discussion. I had the discussion this morning with somebody about the fact that we don't have multiple languages. As a matter of fact, one of our guests also a couple of weeks, like last week, we had the same discussion about how is it that we don't give an importance to a second language in the States, as opposed to if you go to Europe, everybody has a second language plus. I mean, English is almost mandatory across the board. Then everybody speaks a third or fourth language. And then it goes along with in Africa, the Middle East, and the Far East, you name it, they have it in the Latin, continent. It's all the same. Except in the U.S., we take these languages, because my kids took languages too. And I can tell you speak to them like I don't remember a thing, or maybe a couple of words. Right. Because it's not an emphasis. It's just like to fill the curriculum, you're done, and hey, I took French. Okay, I took Spanish. Great. But and by the way, languages, and this is not a topic today, but languages, if you don't practice them, you will lose them. They're somewhere in there. You got to practice them. I mean, one language is going to take over the others. That there's always going to be that, especially if you don't speak the others. So again, that was just a quick drive on. We just veered off for a minute, but it's still, we got plenty of time to cover this. But I think that's something for people that watch and listening, just to get you. I mean, I recommend anybody. If you can learn another language, it will only benefit you. Trust me, folks. Right,
because you're getting that mental stimulation too, right? And you're learning something new. And most people get excited when they're trying to learn something new. they might get frustrated with it, whether it be guitar or, and that's a whole other language in itself,
It is.
right?
Any language, actually,
Music.
code is a language. Learn binary, I don't know, learn coding,
Right.
but
And every aspect of our life, every thing that we do, trainers have their own language, body workers have their own language. Everybody has their own language, even though we're still speaking, in this case, English. But it's still its own unique language within that subgroup. Yeah.
so again, let's talk about the concept of the alignment of the brain and the mind, the body and the spirit. How does that work? How do you, I mean, what is your strategy? Like, I come to you right now, first of all, who are your clients? I mean, just to clarify for people, because they can be a lot as far as I know, at least as far as I can see. But like, who are your preferred clients, if any? I mean, you refer to like the trainers specifically.
Well, I refer to them, but my clients come from all over. I got the wonderful opportunity to work on my great nephew, who was 1 day old, and his ankle was cranked off all to the side, and his foot was purple, almost like the colors in your name in the background. And the doctor's like, "Oh, it's fine. It'll correct itself." And I'm like, his ankle's dislocated.
One
So I just
day.
had his mother do a quick little correction, and it went click, and he's been fine. We also do it. Actually, just this afternoon, worked on a woman. She had a baby 8 months ago, and she's taken a few of my classes that I teach. And I said, as soon as you get the baby, adjust their spheno-basilar joint, which is deep inside their head, right? Because that's what's getting pushed through the canal, and it gets all squished and out of order. The baby doesn't cry. Like it does, it just sleeps. And she's like, "This is weird." I'm like, "Yeah, it's because he's in alignment. We reset his cranial bones in this case, so now he's not in pain, so he doesn't have to just keep screaming."
Oh, that's an interesting thing. I would have never thought about that. I mean, really, that's, I don't know, for you folks watching and listening right now. That's the first time I had 3 kids, and this is the first time I hear about like really fixing. I mean, I get it because the kids, I mean, you can see their structure is kind of malleable at that age, and so ultimately there's fixing. Traditionally, I can tell you from a cultural perspective, a lot of cultures they bandage their heads as babies so they can keep them in a nice circumference as opposed to like getting oval and that I've seen. Now I can put one on one together. I see why they do it. They kind of align that stuff, but they did it from a cultural piece, not from a scientific. So there is some madness to that, I guess.
Yeah, and what that does is it calms the nervous system down, right?
Interesting.
So now they're not have to be in sympathetic distress, right? They come from this warm bath, we'll call it, right? And now all of a sudden they're in the lights and getting slapped on the butt, pricking needles.
I mean, people do look forward to that scream, right? I mean, that's like sign of life. I mean, we do want to hear that first one.
Yeah, no,
but certainly you don't want to hear like, oh no, because it gets a little annoying. I mean, anyone who has been a parent, that first week of coming from the hospital, there's no sleep.
Yeah. Well, maybe now they will. They'll just adjust that spheno-basilar joint, get some sleep.
Well, that's interesting. So basically, I mean, you're talking about touching physically, these folks and aligning them. I mean, we're not talking in a figure of speech. We're talking about physical alignment here, where you can, work, the body from the top to the bottom and, making it. So again, it seems like it's everybody. I mean, from a baby to an athlete, to a trainer, to anybody that you can work on.
Years old, yeah.
So basically, if they can walk and talk, you can fix them.
Oh, they don't need to talk.
Well, they need to communicate somehow with you.
Well, that's the beauty of VOILA, right? Mm-hmm. And we were talking a little bit about languages, and that's why I really enjoyed it. We talked about languages really quick because I went to Japan. I don't speak the language, yet I was still able to work on people because VOILA is a language within itself. Because when I assess people, I don't have to verbally talk out loud, but then once I touch them and make a correction, their whole body feels it and lights up, and they just look at me. I'm like, oh yeah, we're totally communicating.
Well, listen, I mean, you don't have to say words to me. If you just make me feel better, I mean, we already communicated. We're connected. You're my favorite person right now. Here's the thing, though. Listening to you, and I think everybody watching and listening right now, I mean, you do ask the question, like, I think we all need some alignment here, because I've had chiropractors, I've had therapists, and each one of those areas they do have a piece of the puzzle to help us get better physically. But what you're saying here, it sounds like any one of us at any given point, from the beginning to the end, we're probably going to need somebody to work on our body to fix some of these defects, I would say. But now these defects are not necessarily from the birth. They could be also from our posture, from our behaviors, from our training, and so on and so forth. By the way, I had a friend at the gym who was having serious pain problems from the neck, and he's been to, I don't know how many specialists to try to figure out, and they eventually you need surgery and stuff. So if you don't mind, Joel, let's talk about what are some of the things that create these problems. I mean, obviously, for a baby, we get it. I mean, they're still fresh in this world. I mean, they just need to be, because they got a pull, and then people are literally just pulling them out, and there's too many hold in. So and at that time that can happen. But we all grew up. We fall, we slip, we work out, we do different things, we sleep wrong. I mean, there's so many things that we can do. I mean, everybody plays some sort of a game, and even if today's generation doesn't do a lot of outdoors, at least they're playing games on a chair. Their body is also not aligned correctly. So let's talk about like the anatomy, really. Like, how do we need to be first? And then, what are some of the spectrum of problems that you see, and how can you possibly help people get better with them?
Wow, a lot of questions you left that wide open for me. I love it.
It's your show, dude. I just lined it up open ended. So let's just give it to them. We want to learn here.
Yeah. So we talk in VOILA about getting the body back in balance or back in harmony. So, but back in balance doesn't mean perfectly straight. It's almost like a Jenga, right? You're gonna have a little piece off here. You're gonna have another piece off to here that counterbalances it. But what I do, so not all my corrections where I'm helping people, we call them corrections, are physical. I had a woman come to me with a frozen shoulder, and I talked to her for an hour. Never touched her shoulder. All we did was talk. I'm like, by the way, can you raise your arm up over your head? And she went, what the hell?
Hold on. I had one of those, and it was like I couldn't go beyond this.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was like, the rotator cuff and everything, and then I went to a doctor. They did the whole work, and eventually it was just a frozen shoulder, and I had to really do the therapy to keep it going up and stuff. And but I had to do the exercise. You just talked to this lady, because it was mental probably. So that's probably it. Yeah.
It was, and that's more the emotional and the spiritual aspects, and combining those. Physically, it was okay. She was limiting how it was going to move. So that's why it's unique, I think, in what I do. Some corrections are physical, and those are, to me, the easy ones. And those come from what we call a direct force trauma, some sort of injury, or lifting a weight, or falling off your bike, or a car accident, something like that. But car accidents are a little more complicated, because then you also have the emotional aspects of them getting back into a car again. So like I had a client, she's like, I remember everything you say until I get into the car. I'm like, oh, we have to work on your trauma in the car. So it's fascinating with that. And then the third part, right, the spiritual part, and what I do is I find when that person lost their wings, is what we call it, right? Because we're the pure, like the babies, they're pure. But then something happens, like especially us boys, right? We go running off of a roof and realize, oh, I can't fly. Bang.
So I have a story about that too.
Oh no.
Hold on, true story. I mean, when we were kids, a friend of mine, we actually, people are gonna probably like, this dude is crazy. We were kids, and so there was this little building, and there was a grass piece that's outside, and the building was maybe like 4 feet, 5 feet up, and we would go on the roof of this building and jump into this grass piece. It was just like, and there was a cartoon, so we were trying to be like the cartoon. And so this dude actually, went over. He fell while he was talking. He cut his tongue in 2 pieces. He literally, we had to take him to the hospital to stitch it up. And I'm telling you, so talking about kids with wings. I mean, we thought we did have wings. It didn't work out well for us, at least for one of us. So I mean, it's amazing how people have these problems sometimes because we have these perceptions. I can tell you, I used to think about like I can do it. Like your mind says like you can probably jump that far. No, you can't. Your gravity is going to pull you right down. So sorry.
It feels great.
I'm sorry. When what?
But when you make it, it feels great, right?
Well, I don't know if across that. I mean, we all have limitations of how far we can go in the air, right?
Yeah.
But Joel, one thing is that you said is, I mean, really, you're referring to the power of the mind. I mean, we hear about placebo effect, right? Where people are told stories that they don't exist and they accept them because they believe in something. In this case, I mean, especially in the medical field, I mean, you do a placebo test and people think like I cured, but they really got selling, in their blood, but they think they're cured because the mind makes it, real. And that's exactly what you're saying. I mean, some people have no problematic physical problems, but they have a mental blockage and whatever. And then they tell themselves that I can't move. And then ultimately, subconsciously, they're stuck. And I've seen that through hypnosis. I've seen hypnosis doing what you just said, where you talk to someone, you hypnotize them, and they do things that they did not think were possible. And I've seen it. Yeah. I mean, I was skeptical, and I've seen it enough to know. And I even got myself hypnotized a few times, so I know I believe in these things, and they do. It's real. It's not a fake, folks. This is not two people talking about some woo-woo, voodoo business. It's really stuff. It's voila.
And what I've learned is most people's pain, whether it be physical or emotional, mainly more emotional, is they veer off of their soul path. And all you have to do is course correct them back to their soul path, find that passion again within themselves. And it's a really sad thing, Hurricane, it's how many people, I've been doing this for so long, how many people have lost, like, I don't know how to be happy anymore. I don't know what brings me joy. Like, those are really complicated questions for them. But once they discover it, they feel it. And all of a sudden, you just watch their posture change right in front of your eyes. And we haven't done any postural exercises whatsoever, yet now they're standing upright. I worked on this chiropractor. He was probably about my height. And I had to make a correction. Actually, it was to his sphenobasilar joint, so his head. And I literally, my hands started raising up. And I had to go up on my tippy toes to complete the correction. He was like 6'5" when we finished. And about 3 weeks later, or 3 months later, he's like, Joel, he goes, I haven't had to go to my chiropractor. I'm like, I know. So here's a chiropractor that no longer had to go see his chiropractor to get fixed. It's fascinating.
It is. I mean, well, first of all, I love the description. I mean, he looked, shorter than what he was because of the way he was, I guess, positioned. And as you were opening him up, he just basically extended to his ability, right?
His ability, yeah.
It's. I mean, it's hard. Like we're talking about it, like I'm trying to visualize the work here because you're right. There's a mental aspect of everything. And by the way, that mental aspect works reverse because if you have pain, you can really get debilitated, with it because you feel that, oh, my pain. And the more you're going to think about it, it's just going to be worse. Or you can just like, there is no pain, or at least you're going to force your body to almost ignore it. And it does work to a degree. It does dissipate some of the pain. I use that. Well, I mean, there's a point, there's a threshold where you can. I mean, your body's going to just, no, you need to do something, right? But there is a level. That's where some people have a higher threshold for pain than others because they can control a level of acceptance than some don't. And, it's just what it is.
That's actually a physiological response of the body, right? It's called the gate theory. right? So your sensory receptors be sending messages to the brain, but they don't go directly to the brain. They go to the gatekeeper first, and the gatekeeper goes, you can handle it. We don't need to, contact the big guy. He's busy until it hits that threshold, right? Or, the water over the dam. And now the message gets to the brain and brain goes, oh, I just got to do this.
But it's real. I mean, again, I experienced that, like I go through a lot of pain sometimes, and especially when you fight and you work out and do things. I mean, anyone who's training somewhere, they have pain, and it's just the level, of how they take it. I mean, they used to make fun of me in my class, because when we train and I'm like thrown or whatever, or like I'm being locked or whatever, and it's painful, right? Or the joints are being manipulated and it's very painful. I laugh as opposed to like, screaming. I just laugh. That's my scream, right? And it works for me laughing at that time, almost like it takes away from that, excruciating pain. I mean, the pain is there, but that's just my reaction to it. I kind of changed my way of like most people, oh my God, oh, it hurts. I just start cracking up. And like, I'm the only one who cracks up when you get hurt.
Yeah. But it's just it's a different way of the fight and flight response, right? Most people do, right? They're going to scream out in pain, but a yawn could be that, or laughter. It's the same thing. It's just a different way of expressing it.
Yeah, but again, it's not really your typical response. I mean, most people have one way of responding. Like we all know, like pain, oh my God, you scream. Pain, I laugh it out. I mean, I'm like literally, I go hysterical, with laughing, but because that's my pain, I'm just laughing it out. but it's all the mind.
Yeah, well, that's just it, right? That's the beauty of it, right? Is you're taking that and you're flipping into laughter, and laughter is a healing medicine in itself.
Works.
Right? Yeah.
At least for me, it works.
Yeah. It's better than the alternative, right?
I mean, listen, the pain is limited. Obviously, when you're training, you have that moment, and then everything is relaxed, and you go back. But at that moment, it does help you kind of take away, that negativity, because you don't want to. Because if you are upset, if you get into so much pain, you get upset, then your reaction becomes negative. That's just. Again, that's a technique I use on my own. What I taught it to me, I just kind of figured a way out. That was my way out. But it's related to what you just said.
Yeah, but what's interesting too, her again, is everybody thinks that you have to hurt after you work out, and you don't. So we've had VOILA practitioners set up at marathons, and they'll set up at the end, and people will come hobbling over to their tent. And they'll use the VOILA method and work on them, do some physical corrections, and the person walks to their car like they never ran a marathon, and you don't get sore.
You got the magic touch, man.
It's just a different way of looking at the body and how to get it back again. I had a good friend of mine. He's a personal trainer. And, he's telling me, he's like, oh, I've been to see all the best doctors up and down the East Coast for my back, and nothing has hurt. Nothing has worked. I seen, all these different kinds of therapists. So he's at my seminar, and his buddy's like, hey, if you can fix my buddy, we'll buy into this stuff. I'm like, well, then man up and come on up for a demo. All right. Just throw it right back at him. Right.
Nice challenge.
Yeah. You're going to challenge me. I'm going to challenge you back.
Hey, listen.
In a nice way. So we get to where I'm covering back pain. So he comes waddling up. He can barely walk. He comes, his gait pattern is all like a waddle. Comes up, I run my VOILA assessment, which we'll get into in a little bit of like what I'm looking for. And I go, oh, I just have to make a correction to your nose. He's like, what? I go, yeah, I got to make a correction to your nose. So I reach up and I make the correction to his nose. And he starts giggling. Right? He's just probably related to you. Right? I'm like, are you okay? He goes, I feel stoned. I'm like, yeah, you're finally getting oxygen. Right?
Oh shit. So he was not getting enough breathing contact. The breathing is shortened.
Right. Which was affecting his intrinsic core, which was affecting his back pain. He walked back to his desk like a human being. I
Who
go,
knew?
guys, you've been up and down the East Coast. This is the hardest case you gave me. Give me a break.
That's amazing, though. I mean, listen. I mean, folks, you're watching and listening right now. Just probably like just open your eyes bigger because I mean, who would have thought that you will align a nose and then you're going to be different because you're oxygenating better. That's not something you think about. I mean, I don't think we're walking like maybe there's a problem with my breathing now or stuff
Right.
because we don't know. I mean,
Right.
ultimately, like I said, we have not had one of you before. I'm not even sure if, I mean, are there a lot of you out there? I mean, besides your method, but people that do the work you do.
I've had people come up to me and say they do the work that I do, or they'll say, "Oh, whoever comes to see me, like, oh, I have a friend that does what you do." And then when I get done, they're like, "No, my friend doesn't do anything like you do." So this is pretty unique. What I'm doing here,
But
just looking at the
but
body.
it is your concept, right? I mean, but the base of education of it or the base of training on it, it's something that's available. But your style is different. Your approach is different. Am I getting that right?
Um, so if you, I'd like, I think we'll go back to the nose to, so
Okay, go for it.
physiologically, yes, it helped him breathe better. But really what I was doing was affecting his diaphragm that runs like the mohawk. It's called the fossa cerebri inside your skull, and it separates your left and your right brain. And not very many people know about this diaphragm that's inside your head. And so that's what actually, by moving his nose, I was affecting that diaphragm in his head.
But again, that's the question I have is, I'm sure like you talk to a doctor, they probably know that exists. They don't.
No, I have a great story about that.
Please share. Because the reason I'm asking, because I know someone's watching like, what are you talking about, Joel?
Right.
Because I mean, it is unique. I mean, this is the first time like I'm hearing something of what you're stating, right? So yeah, please the story, man.
Yeah. So I played football in college, and we had this one kid on the team who was super smart, and he was also in the athletic training field. And so we got together for 88, our undefeated football season. So we all got together for the 30th anniversary of it. And so he walked in. I was so excited to see him. I hadn't seen him in probably 30 years. And I'm like, being a smart ass, I was like, "Hey, are you a doctor yet?" And he goes, "As a matter of fact, I am." I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome. That's great." I go, what are you, working on? What are you studying? What area? He goes, the brain and brain injuries. I'm like, "Oh, fantastic. So yeah, you got the spheno-basilar joint and you have the occiput to the spheno-basilar joint, and it goes like that." He goes, "Joe, stop. I have no idea what you're talking about." And then he goes, "Joel, I'm going to be honest with you. The research and the studies that we have been doing to help people with brain injuries isn't working." And I go, "I know. And I can tell you why. It's because you have to get the spheno-basilar joint functioning again. And then you can do what you do. But you have to get this functioning first. And most people, this doesn't function. And what stops it from functioning? Many different things." So we're going back to your original question. So it could be a physical trauma. It could be, maybe there's a bone that's out of alignment. It could be anywhere in the body. You never know where it is that could be affecting this movement. Your eyes could be off as far as your vision. Also, how you perceive information or what you're seeing, and also what your perception of what you're seeing affects this. So this is like the gyroscope, which is basically what flies the plane, is the gyroscope. That's how they figure out where they're going. Well, we have one inside our head. And so that's mainly what I work with, but I work with other joints in the body as well. But this is the most important one. For that very fact is, now you get the sympathetic nervous system to calm down. You get them out of that fight and flight. Now the body can rest and digest and heal. Right. That's always my first question after I work on somebody. How did you sleep? It's all I care about. how did you sleep after I worked on you? And most people have had the most deep sleep they've ever had. So you're bringing them back into that, again, going back to that soul level, you're bringing them back and you're showing them what peace is. Because no one knows what that is. They talk about it, but they've never felt it. They don't know what it is to be in that safe space. And what's really interesting with that hurricane, that scares some people. For some reason,
it is scary.
peace scares people. Yeah. So why is it scary for you?
Well, no. I'm saying, well, think about it, right? You live your life not feeling it, not knowing. You talk about it, as you said, but here you touch them, and they have this whole new experience. I mean,
Right.
some people may say, again, it's magic. It's something different. It's not science, right? I mean, people believe whatever they want to believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the minute that it becomes kind of like, I've been all over the place and no one was able to fix me, and you just did the magic touch, and then like all of a sudden I can sleep. I have no pain. I can breathe better. I'm walking like I'm 20 years old. That can make a very different story on people's mind. I mean, it can throw a little bit of a flip on somebody quickly.
It does. It does. It disrupts them a little bit, and that's why I get a lot of pushback from like people in the body working world or trainers. It's almost, I don't know. Trainers typically get threatened. I'm like, dude, I'm not even interested in training your client. You do that aspect. I'm just going to get them back into a space where you can train them again. Right. And I'm going to increase their performance. You go ahead and do all the exercises you want. Just realize most of the exercises that you're giving this person is making them in pain. And I'll tell them which ones are doing that for their client.
Ooh, that's why they don't like it.
Yeah.
So you're pointing out everything that they're doing that is off. Well, so that's an important question, because I have to say, I mean, I've been in training, and in gyms, and I mean, literally since I was a kid, I've been in gyms, and whether it's just weight gyms and things, or even like the martial arts. But there's different schools of thoughts and today, I mean, even in the States and in different modalities of working out, and I've had so many coaches and fitness systems, on interviews, and there's different certifications, there's different this, there's different that, and everybody's got. You talk to one person, they say this works. You talk to another one, this works. Everybody knows that their stuff is what works. Yet, I mean, these are all different ways of doing things, but we can all be making mistakes. And when you point the finger and you say like, "Well, this is what's causing this," oh, it can't be. I mean, that's sometimes how we react. I mean, that's just natural response.
Well, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm not pointing the finger because I don't know until
but they perceive it.
Right. But what I do is I tell them the why. And so when someone says, "Hey, can I go back into working out?" Well, that's too general of a question for me. I need to know, what is it that you're going to do for your workout? I need to know what exercises you're going to do for the workout. And I'll say, "Nope, you can't do that one. Yes, you can do that one, but you got to wait 3 days. This one here, you can't do for about 2 weeks." So this is what I do, because you wait for the body to get ready to do that movement again. Right. And so when people like body workers or trainers, whatever, like, "Oh, you have to do this, you have to do this because this is what works." I don't do that at all. Someone comes to me and like, "Can you help me?" I say, "I don't know, but I would love to find out what is going on." Right. So I come from this place of curiosity. I never tell the client what's going on with them until I'm done working on them. And then I can find the 1 or 2 or 3 things that are affecting their alignment mentally, physically, and spiritually.
So now I know you mentioned assessment, right? So you meet with someone, you obviously have a series of questions you ask, you kind of determine like what exercise they do, what movements, what tools they use. I mean, using dumbbells versus, for example, a machine could be a different thing, right? Can do different things. And even a different trainer can do something different for you or show you a movement. I mean, and we see this all the time. Like some people say you don't do this, some people do that. And you'll have 2 different versions of the same thing. And sometimes they're both correct, but we just don't know what the aftermath of that, that movement, and whether it's going to have a negative impact eventually on your movement or pain, whatever. And that's exactly what's happening. I mean, I've seen, trainers, doing things wrong personally.
Well, yeah.
But they know better. I mean, they're certified. That's what they do. who am I to tell them? Again, I got old enough to realize that sometimes you just let it be. You don't argue. I mean, if I can give advice, I give it. I'm not, again, you have enough experience, but you're not an expert, in terms of what people are looking for. Today they talk to you, what kind of certificate do you have? What kind of school did you go to? What makes you the expert on this? Those are the things. And that's really, where it gets that line I don't cross. But really, I've seen that happen when you know that this is not gonna do, and especially at the gym, you see people doing some movement, bro. You're hurting yourself, but you can't. You tell them now, and they look at you like, you don't look
Yeah.
that big, for me.
Yeah.
Like, so they evaluate you differently. I'm like, listen, I had my share of years of training. You know what? I'm still making it slowly, but I want to make that 80 with less problems. you know,
Right.
but
Right.
good luck, man. Have fun. By
Yeah.
the 30 years mark, if you're still feeling good, that's great. But the way it looks now, it's not going to be good in time.
that joint's not going to make it.
Well, that's the thing. Joints are probably one of the worst places when you have pain. I mean, and by the way, we hear this all the time. As jokes, like as you get in age, you know, aches and pains from all your joints are kind of like saying something to you, and that comes from your history. Whatever you started doing early on
Yeah.
is going to be a problem. In our arts, like for example, martial arts, we manipulate the joints. I mean, that's how you control people. I mean,
Yeah.
you twist those joints, where they really become like, oops, right? So your body
Yeah.
is like reacting, and that's what you do, and that's
You,
an impact.
yeah, you just nailed it. The joint tells you the story. So after I work on somebody, I can recreate and go, oh, you were in this position when you got hurt. And they're like, how did you know that? I go, your body, your joints, like you just said, tells me the story. That's all I have to do is listen to what the
Bro,
joints are saying.
I think if I'm in front of you, you're probably gonna find a whole book.
But
I
to use
just
the
gotta write a
word,
lot of stuff.
yeah. Have you ever become a champion?
No, no, that's not
Right.
my route. Yeah.
No, and that's okay. That's not my point. My point here is we're talking about peace and knowing what peace feels like, right? And this isn't a bag on you at all, but it's like you don't know what being a champion is like either, right?
Agreed.
I'm just giving a clarification, a parallel, so to say, right? Not
Most
that
of
you're
us are
not
not.
amazing,
Most of us are
right?
not. Right?
Right.
There's only
Yeah.
a few champions out there. We know them.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right, and it's a
Gotta be
different
real.
feel, right? But to stay in that martial arts aspect is that's I'm not comparing myself to Bruce Lee, but it's like have no form. Sorry, right? Because if I know what form you're doing, I know exactly what to do to counter it. But if you right, it's the what it ends up hurting you is the one you don't see, right? The one you're not expecting, right? So in the martial arts world, it's kind of the way you look at it. So if you keep seeing the nail, you're going to hit it with a hammer until you realize there's another way to put the nail in without a hammer. So that's kind of what I do.
Well, again, I mean, it's so intriguing. I mean, your work because you know it's not chiropractic work. You're not manipulating the spine and the stuff. You work in the joints, and again, I again in therapy they do all those movements like body movements or like limb movements and things, to But what you're talking about is a complete different approach. I mean, first of all, the mental piece. I mean, there are people that go to therapists because a lot of people sometimes they have the physical, I guess. Looks and feels of a problem, a medical problem or condition, but really there is no actual physical medical condition. It's all mental. And that's been proven. I mean, we hear stories and we know of these stories that are real, where people were only once they get to the mental status, and they fix that, and then the pain goes. And you just do that. So you combine that concept in your method. So the first thing
Yeah.
is you assess. I walk to you, you ask questions, you look at certain things specifically, right? Do you
Yeah. I
actually
look
touch
at
the person?
so what I look at are the keystones in the body. That's the biggest thing I look at. And so we have different keystones in different areas of life. Like we have one in our head, we have one in our chest, we have one in our pelvis, and we have one in our feet. We have one in our wrists. So what I do is instead of talking to I call them worker bees, the muscles, they really don't give you a whole lot of information, right? If I want real good information, I'm going to go to somebody that's really good. That's the boss, right? So if I want to learn about your martial art, I'm not going to go read in a book about martial arts. No, I'm going to come talk to Hurricane. I'm like, hey, Hurricane, can you show me this? Well, that's what I do is I work with the bosses, the boss joints per se that we have. And they're literally in each zone of our body. And you just realign those. Some people like to call it magic, but magic usually doesn't last very long. And I show where my clients 4 months later, they're still having no pain. Like I have a picture of my dad, his hand is all swollen from arthritis. I spent like 30 seconds and I made a little correction to his joint. I got to meet up with him 4 months later and his joint looks totally fine still.
Ooh, I mean, it sounds exciting. People watching right now, they want to talk to you, man, because you got the touch, man. You touch them and it's gone. But again, this is not magic as a joke.
No.
It's real. By the way, like what you said about the joints and like the different levels that we have. I mean, I never thought that we might have, what you're talking about, something in the head. I mean, like, we think the head is a bone and there's some chewy matter in there. That's it, and you have some veins, some neurons. That's what we think about a brain, right? You don't think there's some joint business that is working magic there. You talked about the nose and how it connected to the brain. I mean, I know there's a whole what is it, chiasma, whatever, I forgot the name is, which is
the optic chiasm, yeah,
the chiasma, yeah,
good,
whatever.
good.
So those yeah, that tells you that my biology was in French. So chiasma, we call it chiasma, but that was it. So those are those exchanges, like where everything gets behind the nose, and that's where it crosses to the hemispheres. So I remember those, but joints. I mean, I know joints are in my hands, my legs, maybe the hips.
Right.
We hear those like my hip joints, my knees, but you don't know like there's more to this. And your chest, I mean, you don't think that. I mean, we have a diaphragm here. I get it. That's the separation, but like you're talking about stuff that anatomically speaking is there. We just don't pay mind to it, and we definitely don't associate pain to it. I think that's really the problem. Because we think pain is the bones, is the muscles aching, tears, and this and the other, but not really, So inflammation, does that affect really? That's really one of the indicators.
So,
since you mentioned that, at least in the example of arthritis.
Yeah. So inflammation is just a symptom, right? Something caused that inflammation to happen. So what I look for is what caused that inflammation to happen. I'll address that, and then the inflammation is gone.
You trace it back, basically. So I come to you, you see something that doesn't look good. So I'm going to give you an example. I mean, like there's that, I forgot the name of it now, the heel pain, those needles in the heels.
The dry needling?
Oh, there's I forgot the medical. No, not the needling, not the acupuncture. I mean, there's like, an actual diagnosis for people that stand a lot.
Or the PRP injections?
No, just like, how the foot, the foot, the heel of the foot, there's sometimes people with pain, they can't walk because they have
the plantar fasciitis, sorry.
That's it. Plantar fasciitis. That's the term I was, that's the term I was looking. So that's actually supposed to be an inflammation. But the source of it, again, see, that's exactly, where we are all confused. I mean, we don't know. I mean, the majority of us don't have an idea. We just hear, like, you go to the doctor, they tell you have this. But that's the other thing that I think that is a challenge for us today, is that you have a diagnosis, but you want to go to the source of where that problem is. I mean, the diagnosis only tell you what you have. How did it get there? I mean, it's like you have diabetes. Okay, well, what happened to get to diabetes, right? We did a lot of bad things. Is your pancreas, working? You're getting a lot of sugars. Is it, inherited? All these things. Is your lifestyle bad? And that's just an example, but same thing. Like everything that we do will lead to a certain problem and a diagnosis. But we just need to, the root cause analysis basically is getting us the facts, and then we can do this. That's what you do. But really, so you have inflammation, you see it, or at least someone refers to an inflammation, they come to you, then you have this part, the other part. I mean, there's 3, 4 part, of the body that you're going to go and work on. That's going to take away that particular pain from that area. So basically, if it's facial, it's the head.
Yeah. And I'm really I'm gonna use your line. I'm gonna ask you for permission to use your line that the joints talk to you. The joints tell you the story.
No, please feel free, man.
Right? Because I had this a good friend of mine. She was having arthritis in her hands, and it kind of came on suddenly. So she's going to her doctor, and they're doing all the rheumatology tests. They're doing all the blood work. And the blood work's coming back negative. So the doctor's confused. Like, you have rheumatoid arthritis, yet it's blood work's coming back saying, no, you don't have rheumatoid arthritis, but yet I can see it. So I'm like, can you come and see me? I'm curious about something. I want to just see if it works. So she comes over, and I look for the root cause. Her mother fell leaving her house on, I can't remember if it was New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve a few years ago, and broke her arm. Well, the daughter was feeling bad for her mom that wasn't able to do everything, so she started taking on all of mom's emotions. So again, I just talked with her. 2 days later, she sends me a message. She goes, I don't know. I don't know what you did, but my arthritis is gone.
But that's an interesting, thing that she, by default, because she felt at fault, she basically took the burden of that. That was her way of dealing with reacting to the not helping or not being able to help.
I want to talk to you every day because, man, you've just put that in such simple English. That's awesome.
I'm a simple man. I got to break it down for me. I dummy it down, keep it like I like KISS. Keep it super simple.
That was brilliant. That was brilliant. Yeah.
But really, I mean, again, this goes back to humans are such a phenomenal creation. And we always, like, when you talk science, sometimes science may not have all the answers. Science is one big piece, but there is some things that are beyond. I mean, there is the spiritual realm of, as one, and that affects. There is the mental piece, which is, again, that's the other part. So there's the physical, there is the mental, there is the spiritual. All these things connected make who we really are. One can affect the other. I mean, you can be good spiritually, and you can, literally forget all your pains. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, you have people who have so much faith. I'm talking in the religion concept, and everything they can endure. They have nothing scares them. No pain can actually take a piece at them. As an example, but the mental effect. I mean, this is not even her trauma; it's somebody else's trauma. But because she was involved in it, it became her problem. And that's the thing. And that's energy too. I mean, we're talking about the stuff that is weird, but energy. If I come to you gloomy and I get all kind of like mushy, bad, spiritual, physical, mental stress on you and dump. I mean, we hear this. Like, someone comes to you and they become like completely nagging and negative. You just become like them. You become also nagging and stuff. It affects you.
Or you can. You could. Or obviously. You can interrupt it. Right. And that's what I try to do, is interrupt it.
No, interrupt, or even you can switch it. If your energy is stronger, I mean, this is like, those phase, like the laser beams, like, bashing each other. Who's going to get to the other side? Like the Iron Man business.
Right. But it takes a lot of energy to change it sometimes. So it's exhausting. So we just move away from it. Right. So we don't have to deal with it. But if it's somebody that you really love and you care about, you're going to do what you can to help them. I call it flipping or rotating their energy around. Give them a different view, a different perspective to see if they can relate to it or not.
Well, Joe, so really, essentially, your work is someone has any problem physical, you will assess them, you will talk to them, you will assess their mental abilities and not abilities, but mental acceptance of things. And if there's that, and you can discover it there, that ends the concept, because typically that's where to start. And then, of course, if it's not, then you touch the physical aspect of it, and then you interrupt whatever that stressor to that creates the pain, and then basically you make sure that they have their wings back. As you said, they can fly.
That's a summary right there.
Again, I'm not getting the actual method itself as
Yeah.
is. Now, I'm sure there's tools that you use. I mean, is it just question and answer? Is it like like an
Yeah.
assessment, a physical survey type of thing that people do?
So it goes back to what you said earlier about science. All science is asking the right question. Right? If you're not asking the right question, you're really not doing science. I mean, you're doing science, but you're not doing full science, right? So, and that's what I found out is, like, each level that I teach is about getting better and asking the question, or asking the right question for that particular issue. So that's why when people come to me, I'm like, you bring in your list, and I'll have laundry lists come in and I'll look at it. I'm like, okay, now tell me your story, and I'll listen to that. And then I'll start finding parallels. Because I listen for parallels. I'm like, oh, well, that's connected to this, and this is connected to that. Oh, I just need to take care of this. And then everything goes away. So it's just listening to because everybody does it, right? We all have experiences, and then we have another experience is very similar, but they're not putting it together, that they're paralleling each other. So you just put all those, you can stack them up and go, oh, that's why you do this. And then we just go back to that spot, find out, why they did it. And let's be honest, hurricanes, sometimes can be quite traumatic, and you're not going to get rid of it like that. Right. I'm having such a great time talking with you. I don't want to be either Debbie Downer and tell a sad story here, but
No,
some
please.
people have been, some people have been through the ringer. We'll just put it that way. Stuff that you and I, maybe we could, but we haven't had that experience. And we probably feel, well, I can't speak for you, but for myself, you feel that people shouldn't probably have to have had that experience, but they have. I'm trying to be gentle in what I'm saying here, because I don't want to trigger anybody. But it's been a really rough life, and they've never had a childhood. So now, right, because we were talking about joy earlier, and not being able to connect to joy. Well, they've never had it in their life because something traumatic happened to them at such an early and young age that it was unspeakable. We're not going to talk about, and that's all they know. So that's the world, that's the realm they live in, and that's how they see the whole world, as a manipulation. We'll put it that way.
But Joe, thank you. And by the way, that's a fact. I mean, everybody, no one knows what everybody else is going through except those people. I mean, everybody's got some story in their life. And, some of us are maybe different than the others, but everybody's got some level of trauma that we've experienced throughout the course of our lives. I mean, it depends how long you live. I mean, you have to go through some. I mean, even the fact that, for example, a general trauma that everybody experienced was the pandemic. And as it sounds, I mean, we all had it. We all experienced it differently, but we all were in it. No one can say I didn't, unless you were born after 2021. You existed in and you probably were conceived with it, the 2020. Right. So somehow you're still subjected to it. But the fact is, it has been real, and it affected everybody. But everybody is different. Different countries had it different. Different states had it different. Different cities, different socioeconomics had it different. Yeah. And depending on where you stand in terms of your own, I guess, upbringing, the experience would have been different. And by the way, you're right. Some folks may have a very difficult childhood because of abuse, because of a lot of things, and it is very real, folks. It's not a joke. We know these stories. Whatever is out there, you see in the movies, and I'm just going to refer to the movies or the news. It's real. I mean, the movies are fun, dramatic stuff, but they have a lot of true, factual stuff that's behind in these stories, and sometimes they depict, the reality of things. It happens. People see. I mean, we have wars, for example. You see a lot of bad stuff happening. I mean, we're seeing 2 wars running right now in the world, and we see atrocities, and people are dead. At the end of the day, That if you've ever seen an accident, forget the war. If you see an accident, that picture stays with you. I don't know if ever someone's seen someone hit hard or like having a bad fall or something. It stays in your mind. Yeah, you plug it in someone, you close it in a locker somewhere, but it's there with you. That's always there. And before you know it, you see some situation, you are more aware because you've seen that experience. If you fall once, you're going to be very careful about where you fell and how you're going to walk again. And that just to simplify it, but there are extreme levels of this, and you're right. That impacts every single aspect of your life, how you behave, how you talk to people, how you react, and how you're taking it within your body. Because I think your body is going to be the actual canvas that you're going to work on.
It is,
and it's not, we do this to ourselves all the time.
Yeah. I just fascinating thing happened since you brought up war, because in Lebanon, what was it? It was 2 years ago when they had the explosion at the manure factory or whatever.
That was crazy. Yeah.
Well, I happened to have a person that contacted me after that they were starting to feel pain, and they grew up in Lebanon. So, and I think they grew up in the 90s when there was a war.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she was maybe 6 years old. And she remembers being so scared that she broke out into hives. So here we are now, however many years later, had the explosion there again, and she contacts me, and so we start working, and I find out that at 6 years old, the fears and all this, and that's what we're working through. The next day I contact her, I'm like, how'd you sleep? She's like, I think I'm doing better, but I broke out in hives again. It was that we brought up all that emotion of when she was 6. We didn't mean to do that, but that's just what happened. That was her body's reaction. It went back. But that helped her healing because she went through that process, but now as an adult, so she could process those feelings.
Is that? Yeah. I mean, again, there's the subconscious. It is. I mean, you see, we talk about the consciousness, or the conscious part of our brains and abilities, but subconscious. And by the way, when I had shows about hypnotherapy, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, a majority of our stuff is in the subconscious. Like more than 80% something happens there, as opposed to what we know. And so all these things are basically they're absorbed, and we choose to put them away and put them in compartments and departments and lock them away, whatever storage, areas. But then if at the first sight of something, it goes right back to that first event or tragedy. And that's the thing, like when people, for example, that come from like the soldiers that come from war zones and they have PTSD and stuff. Mm-hmm. Again, we had a few talks about that. They experience those things. I mean, they hear something as simple as firecracker, and now they're thinking that it's war. It's like they react to it, and it could be it could be a whistle for whatever it is. It meant something to them. It could be any noise. I mean, it creates that like fear factor, and then it just jumps right off. Unless you get rid of it, it's not going anywhere. So, and then it does affect like your body, because again, you might be reacting to it. You might even be moving the wrong way because you try to, to keep a certain position, whatever it is. But I can see those things, happening, and it's crazy, man. But I think we are.
No, sorry. Huh?
No.
I said that's why it's never made sense to me that 4th of July we're setting off fireworks. And I'm going, what about all these people with PTSD that had to live through all these bombs?
Now that you said that, I mean, that is a fact. I mean, fireworks are becoming part of our culture now. I mean, everywhere, all holidays, not just 4th of July.
That's true.
All holidays. I mean, New Year's Eve, you name it. I mean, what do you call it? Labor Day, Memorial Day. I mean, all these holidays, they come up with stuff. And a lot of states, you can buy fireworks anytime, right? And it creates a little bit of a super reaction, and you're right. People may not think about that because we only think about ourselves.
Yeah.
You may not think about your neighbor.
Yeah. Keeping them in the loop. Yeah.
But it's great awareness. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. It's always been in my head.
But I can tell you, I mean, definitely it's something that is there's a good question for psychiatry is because, you know, how do we work these people to avoid that reaction if they hear something like that they've experienced in a negative way. See, that's the thing. The fireworks has nothing. I mean, if, for example, my when I was a kid, my first job was in Disney, so fireworks were like,
Yeah,
every
every
day.
day.
But so to me, they bring a enjoyable moment, right, or a
Right.
good memory. But if they bring a bad memory, it's the opposite. You're like on the other side of the spectrum,
Yeah.
and so that's the problem. It's like, what is it attaches to? What is the link? And that's really what makes a difference, and that will have a reaction in your body, like you talked about the hives.
Yeah, and thanks for flipping that around to the beautiful side of that, right? You're at Disney,
The positive, yeah.
happiest place on earth. Here's hurricane watching hurricane, fireworks, and happiest place on earth. So yeah, it's a happy memory. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've seen probably some of the best fireworks in the world, and believe it or not, there was a show in Disney called Surprise in the Skies. It was a daylight fireworks. It was so
Daylight.
powerful that you could see them in the daylight. I mean, it was colors and stuff. It was during the day. It was
Wow,
literally
never heard
every
of that.
day. Yeah, yeah. They had them in the early '90s, and that was called Surprise in the Skies, and it was like top engineering, and they were in the day, not at night. Fireworks at night. These were during the
Yeah.
day. And the only time they didn't do them, if it was going to be like a thunderstorm, they would cancel them. But it was like for at least the time I was there, they had them every day. Uh,
Wow.
yeah. So
See, I
so
learned something new.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's funny. These things they had the characters flying over the actual park with one of those flying kites, whatever with the motor kites. And so it was just an amazing show. It was like a 20-minute
Wow.
show with fireworks and colors and laser. It was just amazing. So, but again, I
Awesome.
mean, again, we're trying to keep the positivity, but folks, every single thing attaches to a memory, good or bad, it will come back to you, and that's all there is. So Joel, you are the one that can help people heal. Now, I know you said something that you train.
Uh-huh.
So are you training experts to do the work, or are you training people just to do things on themselves?
Yeah. So my chiropractor that buddy there that I was telling you about the groove in front of me.
You extended it.
Uh, he when I was very in the beginning of putting this together, he goes, Joel, he goes, it's awesome that if you can do this, is it duplicatable? I'm like, oh, that's a great point. So that's what I do now is I teach seminars to train people how to do what I do because I'm only one man and I can only get to so many people. And my goal is to help the world and change the world in the way they look at body work. I can't do it on my own. I finally learned that lesson, right? I need some help. So I try to
You
train
can
other
be
people,
everywhere.
right? Can't be everywhere.
So and that's important for our audiences. I mean, by the way, we have a worldwide audience, which means this concept can be taught anywhere.
Anywhere.
And anybody that's willing to learn the skills, and I mean, I'm assuming there's a certification that comes along. So basically, as the
Along the
VOILA
way.
method.
Yeah. Yeah. Along the way after so it's broken down into 5 different levels. So level 1's more like the physical aspects. Level 2, we start touching on the emotional aspects. Then like 3 and 4, we're getting more into like how it's affecting us, kind of what we've been talking about just now. And then level 5 is working with the spiritual aspect. Just one thing I want to share with your audience here is, there's so many people out there now that are calling themselves shaman. They take a weekend course or, they go see a spiritual teacher and then now they think they're a spiritual teacher. It doesn't work that way. It's serious business. You got to know what you're doing. This is not something you just play with. I've had so many people come to me after a spiritual teacher has worked on them and they're glazed, and I have to like bring them back into reality again. And it's like it's not something that you mess with. You really gotta, we can have fun, we can laugh with it, but it's really serious business when it comes down to it. because it really can affect people in a lot of different ways. And I'm just kind of laughing at myself right now because I'm seeing my Harry Potter scar popping up here.
I know. How do you find myself?
I scratched myself with my glasses the other day.
Listen, I've been there. It sucks. It's not the worst one. Like you're never gonna allow someone to do it, but you do it to yourself.
Right.
But hey, listen, we're human, right?
That's right. Yeah. And the other beauty thing too, though, that I really try to get across, Hurricane, is, I have my experiences and things that I work with. You're gonna, have a greater experience in another field, martial arts, though my ex-girlfriend was number 3 in the world. So I worked on her. She was funny because she's like, "Oh, what you do doesn't work. Can you help me? I can't move my hand today." And I'll do something to her. And she's like, "Yeah, okay."
She's a believer. She's a true believer.
Yeah. So it's pretty funny with that. So
one thing I know, the spiritual part is probably going to confuse people. We can just because people think when you talk about spiritual, they're going to think about religious spirituality. They're going to think about, as you said, the shaman and things like that. Can you just clearly, or briefly explain what that is for them? I mean, I know we've talked about giving them the wings back, meaning they give them their soul, their true essence, right? But again, you need to understand what that is. But for most people, they think that's kind of like a little bit off, from the right. It's on the left side.
You're good. You are good. Yeah. So we talked about the head, heart, and the soul. Your body, your spine is the antenna that leads you back to, however you want to refer to the higher self, God, universe, supreme source, whatever it is. And that's how I talk with people, is what makes you comfortable talking about God. Some people, that term is nails on a chalkboard. Other people, it's Jesus. Other people, it's Muhammad, whatever. And it doesn't matter. It's just, so what I'm doing is realigning the head, the heart, and the soul to reconnect to your higher self. And that's really what I'm talking about with the spiritual aspect, is dealing with that and realigning someone. Just, as you said, we live through life and we veer off our path a little bit, and you just nudge them back. But the beauty is, and the art of it, is you get them to realize it, that they want to get back on the path. You don't force them back onto the path. And that's what a lot of people are doing with the spiritual aspects. And you can't, in my opinion, you can't do that because it really disrupts them. So you just give them a little nudge and you let them turn on the lights to the next light pole down on the path. So it's just reconnecting them to their essence, as you put it so perfectly.
Well, in essence, you do not really go into the religion. Their beliefs are their beliefs. This is more about just tapping into their belief, basically. Whatever your system is, you're just enhancing their experience within. Yeah. Am I getting that picture right? Because it doesn't sound like you're aligning them to. Yeah, it's whatever you believe is.
Whatever you believe, it doesn't matter at all, really. Like, I will tell people, because it makes me feel more comfortable, that I got this information of VOILA from my mom after she passed away. And I go, "Oh, my mom helped me download this information." Well, I say mom, but what's the reality? It's God. And then it comes down to, what is your definition of God? Right? And some people will say universe, but my mind thinks in multiverse.
Authority. I mean, again, but the reason I asked that question, because we have, obviously, as a worldwide audience, we have hundreds of belief systems. I mean, we have 3 major ones, that were a few major ones, but we have a lot of fractions and different deviations of the belief system. And everybody's got a way of, and it's very taboo. When we're talking religion, people get very sensitive. So what you're doing is really just, working with them to get in touch and aligned with whatever their current belief system is. You're not telling people switch your religion. You're not moving them. You're not a missionary on on a mission to convert people.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get people clear about that, so they don't think like
No.
again you're.
I love that you did that, and it's such a great point. And again, I'm going to give kudos to you. You're so good at what you do. Is like I come from it to the point where I love learning about their belief, their religion, right? And it's excitement. I'm like, oh, I really don't know too much about this. What can you share with me to help me understand? And then I go, oh, he really wants to understand what I'm doing. So they feel like they're being heard, and they are being heard. But then I can, take their words and their language and use that to bring them back onto their essence, their path. So yeah, it doesn't matter what anyone believes in. Like I even said earlier, I may not even speak your language, but we can still work. Yeah.
All right, we got that straight because someone's like, well, are you using are you, because again you might have your own beliefs, so people think that Joel is trying to push his belief into me, and therefore they will put that nice barricade. But
Yeah.
if it's not that, there's a physical, obviously the benefit is going to be physical primarily because you're going to feel no pain and so on and so forth, but it helps to be aligned with your higher being or your higher authority, and that's always a good thing, right? I mean, I think I do believe that anyone with some sort of a belief system is going to have a better personality and better being, because you elevate yourself. If you don't have any belief system, that's when you're a lot easier, I guess, to be deviated into the wrong stuff. Because if you have a fear of authority of a higher, an outcome that may not be good, in most of the system, there is a bad outcome if you're a bad person in this world, right?
Yeah.
So
That's what
if you
most
think
people believe, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
if you're gonna think about, I don't want to go to that burning place, right? So therefore I'm going to be a nice person. Well, then therefore you do better, whatever the actions you're going to take are
Yeah.
hopefully going to get you away from there. So again, this
Yeah.
was just for me to try to get clarification for our audiences, but
Perfect.
certainly I love it. I mean, the mental piece is big, and by the way, the mental piece it touches on the spiritual piece, because a lot of the spiritual has to do with the mental, and it's both one and the same almost.
Yeah. So that's one thing that I want to clarify is everybody thinks, or some people might think that physical, emotional, spiritual, and they're separate. No, they're all intertwined. It's just like our DNA. You cannot separate one from the other. You can't. So that's why the VOILA method is all encompassing in its work. And that's why I can't just talk about the physical aspect. I can't just talk about the emotional aspect. I can't just talk about the spiritual aspect, because it's all the same. It's all one.
And again, if we look at historically and all the successes in the world, they all people have similar traits, and they do all these things. They work their physical, they work their mental, they're stronger mentally, they're strong physically, and they do have a belief system. And some people may have, for the regular religion, they might be, agnostic, whatever, but that's their belief system in a way, and that makes that third component for them. But either way, to your point, we can call it whatever it is. There's still, I mean, that's a whole debate and a whole show on its own. Because at the end of the day, I think every human will eventually admit that there is some, level of authority beyond who we are. And if they don't, then that's fine too. I mean, I always say this: we gotta live. We're gonna go. It will be a pity if there is nothing there, because I'd love to hope that there is more to this life, because it is a very short life, and so hopefully we have an extension. I do believe personally that is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a secret. I'm Muslim. I believe in as an Islamic faith, and so I do believe there is a hereafter, and there's a whole different world out there that's
Right.
hopefully good, and that we do have a punishment mode out there too if we don't do good. So I try, and that's what keeps me motivated about positivity and doing good.
Yeah.
But that's me. But there are people with various backgrounds, and each one of them, we all share the same. At the end of the day, we all have the same.
Right.
We fight. I mean, that's the thing. Like that's amazing. Like, we all arguing and having these things, yet we all are made from the same components.
Right.
It is what it is. But sometimes it's amazing.
It really
Yeah.
is.
Well, listen, Joel. So now someone wants to join your courses. They can do it through your website, and
Yeah. VOILAmethod.com. Yeah, and we have different seminars throughout the country. We're trying to set up in Brazil at the moment. We're trying to set one up there. We're trying to set one up in Australia. So if anybody out there is in those areas that wants to, we already have a host in Brazil. It's all set up. We just got to get the word out for everybody there. It'll be in Sao Paulo, I believe. Yeah.
And now for the actual work, direct work, like to get fixed, to get fixed. Do you travel to places? I mean, I'm not sure where you're located in the States.
Yeah, so I'm in Los Angeles currently, but I might be moving to Tennessee shortly. But it doesn't matter where I am, because as we say in VOILA, we can work anytime, any place, anywhere. And a lot of
like
my
you
sessions,
move in or it's remote.
So most of my sessions now are remote. So most of it's done sitting right here like you and I talking. And what I can
give
do
me
if
instructions.
It's physical, oh yeah. What I'll do is I'll talk you through how to do it. Yeah.
Well, there you go. So there's no excuse.
No excuse.
Now, how many sessions does it take for someone to get fixed? For lack of better words.
Yeah, it's like I said, the guy that was going up and down the East Coast for years with his back pain, it took him 10 minutes. But if you want to go deeper into different things, then it's going to take a little bit longer. But I had one guy came to me with chronic back pain, and at the second session, he goes, I'm 98% better. I go, then we have a lot of work to do. I want to get that last 2%. And we finished up with the third session. He got off the table and he goes, I don't need to see you anymore. I go, I agree. You don't. You're done. But what's interesting with that hurricane is a lot of people don't believe, like body workers don't believe you can get somebody better that quickly. Well, that's a false fallacy. It's like that's what you've been taught. Now I'm learning, because I went through all those modalities that they've done. I'm learning that no, you can help somebody really quickly. But again, if we're talking into some really horrible, childhood emotional trauma, you're not going to get rid of that in 10 minutes. That's a process. And then there's going to be different layers of it and different triggers of it and whatnot. And that's a process, but you get to see the person grow. So it's so amazing. I know we're almost out of time, so I won't go into that story, but
no, your story is always good if you have a minute. I mean, I can hear a story. I think our audiences would love that.
Well, so this woman, she had some really bad emotional trauma as a kid. I'm going to try and make this quick. And she came to my class, and she's sitting on a Bosu ball, and she's bouncing up and down. And we're talking about the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems. And I think I called on her for something. She's like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. And then somebody threw out the R word that I'm not going to say because it's not my audience. And the woman went flying out of the room into the bathroom. So she thought she was fine. We all saw that she wasn't. And then when that woman said that word, boom, she was gone. So she decided to work with me, and we've been going for about 2 years, once a month, and I give her homework to do every month. Well, this last month, she went through a breakup. She went through some other emotional trauma and having to move. And it was so beautiful to hear her tell that story. And I know that sounds weird, Hurricane, but she was telling me that story without the anger, and as like an adult instead of the child, coming from that child's perspective and that's how she's always lived. And now she's talking to me and I can hear the adult in her. And I'm just sitting over here and I'm just like clapping for her. And the beauty is we've been working together for a couple of years. She understood exactly what I was doing, and she understood exactly why I was doing it, because she was hearing herself as the adult telling me that story. And it was one of the most beautiful things.
A completely changed person. She's gone. That old person, or that old, I guess, story of memory is gone. She's a new person.
Yeah.
You changed her.
I like to say she changed
Change
her,
herself. Yeah. Well, you
right?
helped her change. Yeah.
She'll give me some credit, but I just pointed a few things out. You did the hard work.
Well,
You
Joe,
did the hard work.
that's an important piece because nothing can be done if we don't have the will to make it happen. I mean,
Absolutely.
as a person, you can go whether you want to train, you want to learn. If I'm not putting my 200% in and being completely willing, able, ready, and committed, there is nothing that's going to happen. So the
Right.
work is really on us. I mean, you're going to give us the tools, but again, like everybody else, you can give equal tools to everyone. Some will thrive more than others because
Yeah.
these people are willing to make, the investment. Not everybody does. And that's actually a point that I always make in all our shows whenever we talk about something like this. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you listen to, who you're in front. If you're not going to be part of it, you're not going to get the. And then that's the thing. Sometimes, oh, it didn't work for me. Well, did you do that? Like, I mean, we hear it in fitness all the time. I'm not losing weight. Are you doing it correctly? Well, I go home, I eat at night, I do get my cookies, I
Yeah.
do stuff. Well, that's not what you're basically taking everything we give you and you dump it into like water in the sand. I mean, it's not going to get you
Yep.
any results. To get results, you need to stick with the program. I mean,
Yeah.
so
And you
the
got to do
work
the
has to
work.
be done. Exactly.
Yeah. I had this woman came in, she had tennis elbow, and she was wearing all the, supports and bands and stuff for her elbow. And I'm start talking to her, and I'm like, there's something going on. It's a male. It's not your husband. And she goes, I have a stepson and I've been having difficulty with him. I'm like, yeah, that's what's in your elbow. So I got her full range of motion in her hand and her elbow. She's like, oh my God, that was great. I'm sleeping great. And then about 4 days later, she's like, oh my God, my elbow started killing me again. I had to wear my braces again and all this. And she goes, Joel, I'm sorry, but it didn't work. I said, so that's okay, but don't you want to address the blow up that you had with your stepson this morning? And she looked at me and she goes, how did you know? I go, because your elbow's hurting. The
I mean,
next
yeah,
day, she sends me a message. She goes, my elbow doesn't hurt because she hadn't
that's her
addressed the
reaction.
issue
That's
yet.
her reaction.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have you know exactly what the triggers are. She has an allergy. And it's
Right.
like allergy. It's not
It
allergy.
is.
It's
That is a brilliant example. It's like allergies, right? Different foods, right? You eat it and you're like, oh, that stuffed my nose up. Like, oh, there must be something with that food or that. Well, in today's food, you never know, right? It could be some sort of chemical or pesticide or whatever it is that's on there. So, but yeah, you just figure out like what is causing these issues, and then you just make sure that you can look at them in a different perspective, right? Like you took my words and you put them in a beautiful bow, so it was really super easy to understand. So I definitely appreciate you doing that,
you give me too much
right?
credit, but I'll take it. Again, like I am the first client here, so I'm always trying to absorb it too. But sometimes I have to break it down in a way that I can understand it. I mean,
Yeah,
again, your language is a lot more advanced than mine. I just want to get it
not
to
at all.
to the basic elements that I can relate to. And that's the other thing. Like I sometimes I like that because that's how I'm able to also share that information. Can I
Yeah,
understand it well, I can share it easy. If I
exactly.
am not understanding it, I mean, I'm just basically just a board. It's going to reflect all that stuff back to you. I'm not absorbing it. So,
Right, right, and that's really what VOILA is all about. Is we call active listening. It's not just being there, sitting there, being a board and having an ear. That's not listening. That's just what, right? But it's that active listening. It's that interaction. It's that engagement. And again, you just nailed it again.
I'm going to open a hardware store.
So I'm going to let you in on a little secret here,
Yeah, go
Hurricane.
ahead.
Have you noticed in the last minute or so, I kept giving you compliments and then you laugh.
Yeah.
So I realized that, yeah, you're not real good at taking in compliments.
Wait a minute. What do you mean?
because you laugh and you kind of brush it off, like, oh, you're giving me too much credit, you're giving me this. So I was kind of testing to see how well you are at receiving compliments.
I take them for what they're worth. I can't say I can't
For
deny
what
them.
they're worth, right? Oh, so you just told me that my compliment wasn't worth anything.
No, on the contrary.
Just
On the
kidding. I'm just
contrary.
kidding. I'm just playing with you
You still
now.
tested me. But that's really what it is, right? I mean, I take, the compliment. I mean, listen, I can't, I see that's the thing. Part of me, I don't always, I'm used to one concept, I don't
Yeah,
want to take the credits. I'm not that kind of person that always wants
exactly.
like to have that,
Exactly.
not me. It's really for my audiences, for the people.
Yeah.
Um, I like to be more of a giver than a taker, but and that's always been my thing. Like I work in
Yeah.
anything. Like successes for me are a reflection on everybody else around me, and I'd rather give than take.
Yeah.
And it's fulfilled me all my life, and I'm happy about it. So I
Yeah.
take them when they are, and that's
Yeah.
it.
So I'm going to give you this one more compliment, and that's what's beautiful about you. Really are. I've really enjoyed my time with you. Fantastic. But the flip side of that, and that's not so much about you, but there's so many people have a hard time taking a compliment. Right? I couldn't do it. It was so hard.
If you're listening only, he was pointing at himself here,
I
Joe.
was pointing at myself. Yeah.
We got to give a descriptive to our audiences online.
Yeah. But I finally learned just say thank you. Right? Yeah.
Listen, that's a powerful word. Two words. They're very powerful. I mean, gratitude and just saying thank you. It's not a lot.
No.
Like just say it. It doesn't hurt. I mean, thank you very much. I'll take it.
Yeah.
By the way, when I say for what it's worth, to me, that's actually, a higher level because the word to me is important. I mean, I'm taking knowledge. And by the way, I think the best gift that you can give anybody is knowledge because the more we learn, the more we elevate. As a matter of fact, our tagline is really time to evolve. We need to evolve to the next level, and you can only evolve through enlightenment and education and learning.
Yes.
So
Yes.
every session to me, I call these like my little, what do you call them? Like professor, sessions or college,
Hey.
courses. These are like educational sessions for me. I learn from them. These are like my nice little. I'm going to any of those courses that you pay for so you can get some knowledge. I get them right through here.
Yeah.
By the way, this is not the only thing. Every podcast that's out there, or most of the podcasts out there, is from experts and great talent that is actually sharing real value that they usually get paid to actually give. And you get it, on a talk show, in a very similar way and less aggravating. You don't have to pay much for it to learn from it. And even if you extract a couple of things from a show, there's always things that you can apply in life. If you take one or two things from this particular opportunity with Joel, you're gonna win something. I mean, even just thinking about it will make a difference in your mind.
Yeah. And and it's so funny because what we say with VOILA too is you are your first and your last client, right? So with VOILA, you can actually work on yourself. But also what I say is I learn from every client I work on. That's why I can't tell you this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do, because I am learning you. Then we can figure out what's going on to help you.
Well, again,
that's one way I can do it is learn.
It's correct. And by the way, that's right. I mean, coming from the sales world, and in sales, that's exactly what we do. We assess, we ask questions, we survey. We want to make sure we get all the questions that may be later on, important, pertinent, and so we get all the information, so we'll be able to help and assist better. And that's really what a diagnosis is, and an assessment is. You want to know to be able to deliver. If I give you half of this story, you only can help me based on what I give you. So I'm giving you, some tools, but not everything. And therefore, you might give me a whole different, formula that is not going to work 100%. And that's exactly what happens. Someone cheats, they only cheat themselves.
Yeah. And I've had that happen. Somebody was at my door, but like, a lot of modalities say, oh, you have to believe in what you're doing, or somebody has to believe in what you're doing. But what I find with VOILA, that's not the case at all, because they may not believe in you, but then you make a physical correction and then they can feel and notice the change. then they start buying in. Then they start telling you the real story of what's going on. And that's what's always fascinating. I had just one guy in class where I do a blindfold test. I'll blindfold them and have them walk. And you'll see them veer off in one direction or another. Then I come back and I make a voila correction, put the blindfold back on, and they walk straight. And this one guy told me I was trying to walk crooked to prove you wrong, and I couldn't.
There's all skeptics out there, right? So yeah, listen, I'm telling you, for any skeptics out there, the only way to do it is try it out, test it out, and test it out with the intention to really verify and learn, and you will. That's happened to me. I told you in hypnosis, I first didn't believe in it. I thought it was, some BS stuff, and I tested myself into it, and I actually timed it and everything, and it worked. And I've done it, about 4 times already so far. And every time I did the hypnosis sessions, they work. They're not just fake. They're real. They work 100%, and there's a result. It's the same thing here. Everything, if you put the right intent and the right word, you're gonna get the actual results.
Yeah.
Well, Joel, listen, I know I took you a little longer than expected, so we've run a little over, but it was fun.
I really appreciate it. You are amazing at what you do, and the way you just wrapped everything up. That was great. Thank you.
Thank you, and it's my pleasure and an honor and a privilege to have you on. And definitely, folks, I hope that you've learned a couple of things. You do have a resource. Again, if you're skeptical, well, what do you have to lose? Find out. Reach out to Joel, and I'll have the link on the description of the show. So click, go. And, again, you want to train, that's an opportunity. You want to get fixed, that's an opportunity. Both are good for, your listeners out there. And so any last words that you want to leave our audiences with before we close the show?
No, I think you summed it up beautifully. I just, please reach out. You can reach out, I think, through Pensight. It's like you can do a 15-minute thing. Just we can talk about things, answer some of your questions. That's free. It's no cost for that. And then you can decide if you want to do a session after that.
There you go. All right. Well, so this concludes our time with Joel. Joel, thank you so much for being with us.
It was a pleasure.
Likewise. And so that's it, folks. We'll be talking soon. New day, new show, new topic, new guest. Stay tuned. Bye for now.